All right, so hi everybody. I'm Ca-Lishea Woods. This is my first ever podcast. And for my first podcast, I've chosen to just talk about my general thoughts and what I got out of the 2017 Higher Education Important Developments Horizon Report. Generally, my approach to the Horizon reports that have to do with higher ed focus on how closely the students that I work with are being prepared for what the higher ed reports are saying are coming up in the near future. So I am an 8th grade math teacher, and my students are part of a personalized and self-directed learning program. So what they do is they have their own platform that serves as their go-to place for curriculum. So they click on the different playlists so that they can look at the resources for different math content and topics. They can take notes on those topics, watch videos, do practice problems, and then when they are ready, they can take a content assessment. And as they're going through and learning these different topics and different content, they can ask me for assistance, or through the platform that we have, I can look at their data for how well they're doing on tests, and if they happen to not master the test, and talk with them and help them with figuring out what to do in order to become successful and master that particular playlist or content topic. So, in a sense, they're really being prepared for college because they have to access this information on their own. They study it on their own. They seek assistance as necessary, and they take their assessments when they're ready. And it's self-paced, so they go through the content at a pace that works best for them. So it's a bit like an online class. So in this 2017 Horizon Report, the important developments that it talked about are adaptive learning technologies, mobile learning, the Internet of Things, next generation learning management systems, artificial intelligence, and natural user interfaces. And so when I was looking at this Horizon Report, I was looking at and kind of thinking about the safety, how safe, legal, and responsible the use of technology would be for the students, and how much what my students do in class, how much it applies to becoming lifelong learners. And so when I thought about the mobile learning and that made me think about the mobile learning aspect of the Horizon Report and the Internet of Things. So with mobile learning, it talked about online textbooks and applications, and it said that mobile devices have become the gateways to personalized working and learning environments, which I found to be true for my students. Even though they have personal netbooks that they can use with touch screens and everything, students do access the platform on their cell phones. However, there's not an app for it, so they can't go like to the App Store or the Google Play Store and find an app that relates to our particular platform, which is kind of sad. I wish they had that. The other thing about mobile learning is that it says it builds the habits for lifelong learning. And so for my students, I'm hoping that by accessing information on their own, it's encouraging them to be curious about what they're learning. I have noticed that some of my students, if there's something that they are learning about through the playlist, something sparks an interest and they start to Google other things. It can sometimes take them down like a Google, like a rabbit hole of Google searches, but sometimes it sparks a curiosity, and then they share that curiosity with their friends. And so they talk more about math, which is always something that I'll want for them. The other thing about the mobile learning is it talks about bringing your own devices. And there's a lot of fear with that in secondary schools. And I think part of that fear has to do with the teachers themselves. There are some teachers who are fearful of using technology within their classroom environment other than here's a tablet, type up a paper on this, or here's a tablet, search for stuff on here, create a PowerPoint or something to that effect. And so really using mobile learning as a source of learning experiences for students can be fearful for teachers because they're not certain how to best incorporate it into their classrooms. So it seems that though whenever the students get to college, that's not a fear of college professors. And so when teachers in secondary schools are fearful of the technology, to me, they're holding students back as far as preparing them for what they may encounter when they go to college. So, I wish that our teachers embrace the technology in the same way that a college professor in higher education institutions embrace it. The other thing that I was thinking about when it came to the Internet of Things, it's a little abstract for me, I have to be honest, but it's talking about the connectivity of devices and data that use the internet. And so a big thing about that would have to do with privacy issues and data and bandwidth. And so that is a concern, especially with students, the students that I have, since they're all underage, and they barely look at the privacy settings for, their Instagram pages or their Snapchat. So I'm not certain that if they're using internet platforms that they're really being sure that their privacy is secure. So it kind of made me think of, what hath man wrought with all of these things that we have access to and all the data that we can get into. Are we interneting ourselves out of existence? Sounds kind of weird, but that's kind of the thought that I had when I was reading that report. The other thing that I was thinking about and reading this has to do with teachers feeling that students are already ready for the Internet of Things and using mobile learning and even learning management systems because they are so quote-unquote tech savvy. And so while they may be able to use a cell phone and access different things and Google something, they don't necessarily have the ability to use something like a learning management system, or they don't know how to Google something or use a search engine for a specific purpose or to look up specific information. It's always very generalized. So I think that's one way that we can help our students as they prepare for going to college and higher education. I think if we as teachers start to recognize that while students are savvy in certain aspects of technology, there are a lot of things related to technology that students don't know how to do. Yes, they can turn on a computer, but do they know how to create a presentation or use presentation tools and software for a presentation to their class? Or are they able to write a document using Microsoft Word or Google Docs and able to edit it and use proper grammar and spelling and incorporate that into another part of technology, like incorporating that into a presentation? So there are certain aspects of technology that while students can access the technology, they don't necessarily know how to properly use it. I think there's kind of a disconnect between what we do at my level as a teacher and with college readiness, especially concerning technology. And so part of what the program that I work with or that my students are a part of it's building habits of success that lead to lifelong learning. And so when I was a classroom teacher in a more traditional classroom, we had the technology, but our ability to use it within a traditional classroom environment was limited to what I was willing to do. And so I was ready to fully embrace the technology. I understood what it would mean for preparing my students, but I did see, again, within my own department, that teachers were fearful of using the technology. They didn't know how to teach the students to use the technology, and I think that that's some professional development that our teachers not just within our school district, but teachers across the country could really use, is not only how to use the technology themselves, but how to teach students how to use the technology as well. I also think that being able to teach students how to think about their own privacies and protection whenever they are using their technology, whenever they're online, whenever they're communicating with friends online, I think that that's something else that as teachers we should be teaching our students. It's not something they should learn how to do as adults. So the final thing had to do that I really was focusing on had to do with learning management systems such as Blackboard, which we're all familiar with at University of Houston Clear Lake. And so I'm hoping that with my students this year, they learn how to work within a management environment where they have to access different data entry points in order to be able to turn in assignments and access the information they need. One of the drawbacks I think about Blackboard, though, is it's not friendly in the sense of using it for analyzing data to better our grades and better our understanding of topics. So I would hope that my students, by the time they get to college, they're somewhere where they have learning management systems that provide data analysis, because that's something that my students have been exposed to. Unfortunately, there aren't a lot of students who are in traditional classrooms who receive any sort of data analysis exposure. They're told what their grade is, they take tests, they get a grade. That's about it. They don't get a lot of feedback where they can look on their own to see what the data says and figure out how to best help that drive their own educations. And so I think it's very reliant on a teacher, whereas I would rather it be focused on a student being able to access it and come to certain decisions about what they want to study and how they want to learn. So those are my general thoughts about this 2017 higher education important developments, and hopefully what I said made sense. But if not, hey, leave me some comments or get back to me about what you think about this. And I'm just going to continue reading these Horizon reports and comparing the higher education ones to the K-12 ones. And so that's all for now. Thanks for listening. Bye.